Hello and welcome to Acclime's podcast series Advancing Vietnam with me, Vlad Savin, as your host. Throughout the following episodes, we're looking to answering relevant questions about doing business in Vietnam. What are the opportunities and challenges faced by investors entering the market or existing players in major industries? We will seek to understand the business environment from a cultural, local mindset and how to deal with compliance from an international perspective. What are the major risks faced by businesses active in the region and how to overcome them? We will dive deep into the compliance environment in Vietnam, discussing processes and procedures, changes in laws, latest official updates from the authorities, and financial governance planning for businesses active in Vietnam. We at Acclime consider compliance a major asset for foreign investors operating in Vietnam. We emphasize this aspect when speaking with our clients, and we make sure they understand the significant benefits of being compliant. In this episode, I'm discussing with Matthew Lourey, Managing Partner at Acclime Vietnam, and Guido van Rooy, Executive Director at the Dutch Business Association in Vietnam, about the investment opportunities which exist in the European and Vietnamese business communities. We will seek to understand how to bridge the market gap so that international investors can access the information and resource flow between Netherlands, EU, and Vietnam and have a successful market entry process in Vietnam. Matthew, Guido, welcome to our 14th episode of Advancing Vietnam podcast series, and I'm excited to have both of you today here as this is our first panel discussion in the series with a distinguished guest.
Great to be here, Brad. Look forward to it. Guido, welcome very much to the desk.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Guido, as many of our listeners are based in Europe and certainly Netherlands as well, can you please share with us a few introductory details on DBAV, its history here in Vietnam, and the goals you have set out to achieve in order to better support the Dutch business community in Vietnam and abroad?
Of course, I'm happy to do that. DBAV stands for Dutch Business Association Vietnam, and we've been around since 1999 as a relatively small player in the, let's say, the Eurojam ecosystem. And I've actually come on board since end of 2019 to make way for the new ambition, which was in light of the European Union Vietnam Free Trade Agreement to transform DBAV from a traditional business club into a more dynamic business hub. A chamber of commerce, if you will, that helps market entrants and members succeed in Vietnam. And over the last years, DBAV has really grown very strongly from about 40 members less than 1 year ago to, we're just over 100 now.
Very interesting. And speaking of members, how diverse is your membership spread looking at company sizes, industry verticals, and which of these sectors do you see having a significant growth in 2021?
Yeah, so we see in our membership, in our member directory, which you can look up on our website, you see a lot of companies with an agricultural food background. So that is what the Netherlands is typically strong in. But we're strong in many different industries. So we're also strong in manufacturing, but we're also strong in water. Water, I need to mention that, maritime, shipbuilding, that type of stuff. And if you look at the sizes of the companies, then you see it is about 20 or 25 companies that I would call Dutch silverware companies. So these are the companies from the Netherlands that a lot of people know, such as Shell, such as Heineken, such as Unilever, such as AkzoNobel. And I could go on for quite some time. So these are the larger enterprises. And then in the Netherlands, I think still the engine of the economy is still the SMEs. So those are the companies that are coming from about 10 to 99 employees. And we also have a lot of those in our membership database. And they come from a very wide variety of industries indeed. And lastly, we obviously have our smaller players, our coaches, the freelancers, the designers, and so on. And they can opt for an individual membership at the Dutch Business Association.
Right. Matthew, you have positioned Acclime with a key focus on community building and engagement by having partnerships with several chambers of commerce. Can you tell us from your experience, how did you engage with these communities and their stakeholders, and what benefits have you discovered and why these business interactions are important for companies active in Vietnam and abroad?
And it's interesting to see, Guido, how he's looking at inside the chamber, because using that and understanding that really is important. I spent a lot of years inside OzJam. I was former treasurer, president, director for a number of years, as well as participating, but also engaging with the chambers. And as you say, Vlad, that the chambers are a key part of market entry. They're a key part of engaging in. So if you were looking at some of those specialty areas that I mentioned, you're looking, if there was food and agriculture was a key part, connecting with others and other investors that have gone through what you're doing or understand or have a connection. If you can relate, and it's not just one business chamber, and that's something key here at Acclime, is that it's never about one chamber. It's about breadth. It's about finding specialties. It's about engaging with others. Their mistakes become your lessons that you learn and working it out. And no one network, no one chamber works. So we do very broad. We do networking, the social side. We do the events. We do the cross promotions with a number. And it's important to keep that breadth, because you don't know until you're involved and you have your networks who has done something. And I've been here more than 16 years. I still find out every day about someone who's done something successful, learned something with a change in law. I want to interact with them. I want to be involved with them. I want my clients to understand that so they can be involved. And it really is about that greater community. And from a foreign perspective, the chambers and the periphery around that is the best insight into Vietnam. It cuts through a lot of the bar talk, pub talk, as we say, which is, you hear a lot of it's not factually correct. The chambers allows you to cut through, and you would have seen sort of a lot of the stories you hear that you have to sort of disseminate and go, well, that's not the fact. And here are people who have done it correctly and don't have to live by those misinformation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I fully concur with everything you said, and you also have very broad experience indeed in these chambers, and I think there's also another reason for companies to become a member, and that is specifically in Vietnam. You've got the way that the Vietnamese government works. If you have a problem with the government, you don't simply walk up to a government office like you would in Australia or you would in the Netherlands or in any Western economy, really. And that is something that the DBAV also really helps with, together with the Eurocham. And again, this is not only DBAV or Eurocham, but could indeed also be Auscham or any other chamber. They really help set up that dialogue with the government.
And that's very important. So the ability to understand problem solutions, dialogue, all of that, it's a very, it can be complicated, and having parties and partners that can help you on the path is absolutely critical.
And you both mentioned Eurocham just before. Acclime is a member of Eurocham as well. DBAV is under the umbrella of Eurocham. Can you share a few details about how you engage with the bigger Eurocham community from your perspective as in a corporation and also as in a business chamber?
So how we connect with the Eurocham is basically what we want to achieve with Eurocham is that we have that advocacy pillar in our strategy. So what we want to achieve is that Eurocham is our vehicle to get in touch with the Vietnamese government. We've got our other vehicles or ways of dealing with the Vietnamese government as well, but that is what we want to achieve with Eurocham.
And from the other side, sort of as an outsider, I'm not an active board member, but I'm involved in some of the committees. What Eurocham provides is this high-level voice, and the AmChams and others do the same thing, but Eurocham, high-level voice direct to government. There is the Vietnam Business Forum, which is twice a year, a chance to address ministers direct, and the subcommittees there constantly are liaising with the relevant ministries when issues arise. There's issues at the moment with work permits and others where there's direct dialogue. There's actually a dialogue session tomorrow with Eurocham organised with the Ministry of Labour to solve those issues. And it's those dialogue and the ability of a large organisation that smaller individual chambers could not do. So the Eurocham really is a key part of that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So adding up to that, what the Eurocham offers is a range of sector committees. I believe they've got 17 or 18 in total.
18 years.
Yeah, so ranging from legal to manufacturing to human resources, pharma. Almost every sector is included. And I was actually wondering, is Acclime active within such a sector committee?
Within Labour and HR, and also involved in tax.
Right.
Yeah. So and having those avenues to understand what's going on directly with the authorities, and again, not hearing and not interpreting through third party, is key to really being able to advise clients around what it is and solve problems and identify where there's a problem. There are unresolved issues in labour law right now that's just arisen. And that's what these meetings are to solve. And we want to know. We want to be touching on that to inform the authorities about what their problems are causing, but also make sure our clients are aware of what's going on.
Yeah. And another example could be the draft decree on personal data protection that is currently in the making. That people were actually in the drafting phase quite surprised about, and it was quite a big shock. Now, actually, the authorities also make time for feedback from the commercial, from the private sector, and it actually looks now to we're about 2 or 3 weeks in the process. It actually looks a lot better already.
So GDPR consistency with the various trade deals that it has with European Free Trade Agreement, TPP, other commitments, making sure international conformity is something we haven't seen in the past. And that's great that this engagement allows for that.
Yeah.
That's right. Guido, come back to you. You are constantly talking and engaging with the Dutch investors and companies active in Vietnam. In your opinion, what are the challenges they face in doing business in Vietnam, and which sectors are more prevalent to raise specific issues that need to be addressed?
Yeah, there are so many things that need working on in Vietnam, to be honest. And it's normal. It's an emerging market. Things are going fast, and Vietnam is up and coming. One of the problems I see is that companies have simply got difficulties getting in business. It's not like back home where you walk up to your Chamber of Commerce and you register your company. There's really actually a lot of things that you have to do. It's still not a very friendly business climate. So setting up shop is not easy. And another thing that I would like to mention is finding and retaining truly talented people that are actually really also loyal to your company and that want to grow along with your company. What you see is that there's a very young working population that is typically defined as serious, talented, hardworking, but not always loyal, and they will shop for jobs and for a little bit better salary or for the opportunity to work with friends or family. They will easily leave again. Now, there are a variety of solutions for that, and that is one thing that we are working on. We're trying to give those solutions and those ideas to our members, and at the same time, we try to also better understand the culture, to understand, okay, what makes a Vietnamese employee typically tick, and what is the reason for them to stay on board.
That's right. And coming back to the same question to Matthew, but with a different spin, you're predominantly supporting international investors with their corporate structures, market entry, and compliance. Which key issues do you think investors should pay attention to in order to have a compliant and risk-protected business in Vietnam?
Well, I'm going to start by going back to and disagreeing with what Guido said. Not disagreeing in fact, but disagreeing in how you can do it properly and not have a problem. So you mentioned that it's not a friendly or easy environment to start a business. It can be. And that's the difference I have. If you plan ahead, if you get information, Vietnam's very process-driven. If you understand the process and the documents, and if you are in a restricted sector, and there are a number of sectors restricted, most are open, but there are restrictions, or there are sub-licenses. It's identify them before you start. It's get the advice. Don't just jump in and assume it's going to be okay. That's what fails. And that ruined from the start. It's very hard to recover from a bad start. So before you go on and get too deep and start failing, get that clarity. So Vietnam, everything can be pushed down to a process. Vietnamese authorities don't want to make decisions. They want to follow the process. They don't want to be held accountable within a socialist system, within a hierarchy of government for making a decision outside the box. So everyone's got a box. If they're ticking boxes, filling in, follow that process. If you've got clarity on process and you're just working through with documents, don't fight the system. Work it through. It's not that hard. It doesn't mean that it's going to be super simple as you expect in another country. Singapore, I can do it online. In Australia, online. Most of European countries, minutes I can have a company, pay your fee, you're done. It's never going to work like that. And you reset expectations. But if you know what they are, it's a 6-week process for a foreign investor setting up a company. I need these documents. I start the process, and in 6 weeks I pick it up. Done. It's not so hard. So that's the first part. The second part is. I mentioned earlier the pub stories. Don't listen to those. You set yourself a compliance calendar, find out the key dates, make sure that you're following, not trusting someone else to do it, make sure you know what they are, and that someone's accountable to you within your business. So if you know what the key dates are, again, it's a process, make sure someone's accountable, follow through. And the rumours and stories here are often misinterpreted, or they're done from a local perspective. And local perspective is not necessarily compliant. The local way of local household businesses have a very different structure, and the history of trying to avoid taxes and avoid government, which comes back to bite you, is definitely the wrong way to go. It will never work from a foreign point of view. So just take the right approach, get what you need to do as ongoing, and make sure someone's delivering to you. Don't just trust, monitor and follow up.
Yeah, that's a very sound advice. I really fully concur with that. It's so important to start off right, because if you make mistakes at the start, it's very difficult to make it right again. So that is absolutely something to follow for every new market entrant. Seek your advice from wherever. I know of a few desks where you can get your advice. So that's no problem, of course. But do seek your advice.
You sure you know someone?
Yeah. I know just a guy.
Right. So then coming back to that on more of a practical advice, Guido, let's start with you with a case study. Can you share an example from one of your community members who had an interesting success or failure or growth story in Vietnam, and the insights that you may have learned and you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, it's a bit of it's a difficult question. It's also difficult to pick, difficult to choose. There are many large enterprises, like I mentioned in the beginning, that have successfully entered Vietnam. And this is already a tremendous effort, tremendous performance. They range very broadly, from Shell, even before the borders opened, I believe, to Heineken, to other of those big Dutch companies. And then what we see is a lot of Dutch entrepreneurs that have along the way seen the potential of Vietnam. For example, in shipbuilding, Damen in Haiphong is a fantastic company. Is a fantastic example of innovation in Vietnam. They build tugboats. They can even build electric tugboats right now. So they have got a successful business here, and they are actually exporting around the world their boats. And that is really where what makes my Dutch heart pound faster is when I see Dutch knowledge and expertise thrive here in Vietnam. That is for me very. That is what I find very motivating. And now what we see is actually a lot of market entrants coming into the market now. So we see a lot of companies that sell something special or something unique. Then it is an electric three-wheel scooter, or then there are emergency bridges that Dutch companies build, and they all have something to buy or something to sell here in Vietnam. It's a little bit difficult because I've actually been active in the DBAV since December 2019, and COVID really has slowed things down in terms of company establishment and so on. And as such, the idea that the country economy and the GDP is still growing is a little bit misleading, because there are a lot of opportunities that are really not easy to take right now because of what has been happening in the world. I do believe, however, that when the borders open, and I've got them in my mailbox, there are so many entrepreneurs that say, okay, when the borders open, and Vietnam will be my first stop. And that is the moment when I will also surely see the first successful business cases coming in.
Right, it makes sense. Matthew, one of Acclime's clients is a large international group headed by an executive from Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken. Can you share some details about how you managed to support the growth of their business, what challenges they have faced during COVID, and how they succeeded by adopting a lean strategy?
Okay, so I'll address again one of Guido's things is that, funnily enough, during the COVID to now, we haven't seen a drop-off. We've actually seen an increase in company establishments and market entries, and that's been partly of how we help and advise and address. That said, a lot of them are set up, get it ready, go, but they haven't brought full large amounts of capital. They're ready for when the borders open. So we see a lot of pre-work and people committed to Vietnam, and still we see no reticence in setting up the companies, getting operations, getting people. But it's that, the borders, when they're open, is when the influx of capital and the big expansion happens. But we really have seen no slowdown in the actual focus on Vietnam and commitment to Vietnam, which is maybe different to others, but our way of hand-holding, guiding, getting people ready, people are ready, the businesses. So that Vietnam GDP, it's consistent, but I see a legal launching pad, as you say. As soon as those borders open, it's there. So that particular client I think you're referring to was very much focused on wholesale and hospitality. I won't name the exact sector because it will identify there, but their business model was decimated when COVID hit, simply because orders stopped. They pivoted very quickly. We had to help them move to a retail model, help them with online, and moving much more direct to customer. That was a complete shift from what they were doing, from their delivery vans and trucks to motorbikes, and changing their delivery models was one thing. But getting licensed, doing the e-commerce license, getting the approvals, dealing with the authority, and they had a few unique twists with that business. So it's a global business. It's not Dutch owned, but led by a Dutch individual, very entrepreneurial, and addressing Vietnam, unique to other markets. And I hear about the other markets and trials and tribulations and what they did here, and guiding, and they would sit and discuss, saying, this is what we need. We can't do this, we can do this. Can we adjust? Can we play? And it really is in Vietnam, one of the keys is understanding, as I said at the start, understanding the past, looking at the restrictions, looking at the opportunities, plotting that path for what you could do, the processes, working through. They had a few issues. We had to deal with those issues. And the supporting business, supporting headquarters, and a driven individual, getting advice, walking through, and it's successful. I don't think they've necessarily covered all the revenue gap, but they've got a different business, a sustainable business now. When the borders open, they've got two business units basically side by side, and they're ready for that growth. So watching someone adapt and not just sitting back and going, oh, the world changed, or wait and see what happens, having that entrepreneurial approach, and maybe that's the Dutch coming through to drive that, is been exciting to work with them. And they're happy to pay the fees. We're not, we don't charge mid-range when it comes to pricing. And each time they're happy to pay. Why? Because they're getting what they need. They're setting a vision and they're delivering. And when you achieve, you're happy to pay for that. And to us, that's the best sign of success. If someone goes, yeah, happy with that, you've done a great job, happy to pay, because that, from the end of the day, they're getting value. They're getting what they need in their businesses, being successful and growing in a certain way they never would have needed to pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Guido, Matthew, this closing question is for both of you. What advice would you give investors already present in country or seeking to enter the market in Vietnam from a community building perspective and from a business process perspective? Essentially, what should they take out from our discussion in this podcast episode?
Okay, well, you just pointed to me. So I would say from the community perspective, build your network of professionals, people who are in similar businesses, similar culture, and similar stories that you want to achieve or are in the process of. If those people who give you the most realistic advice and connections when you have a problem, when you have a need, and you'll help them, they'll help you. That's sustained you in Vietnam. The other one is, from a professional point of view, stay in touch with a professional advisor. The fact that in Vietnam you can do everything, hire a chief accountant, everything in the business is dangerous. Make sure you have that oversight. Make sure you have that international approach to doing business, and making sure that at every stage there is that sanity check, that protection, and not just going, I don't need external, I can do it all myself. That will get you in trouble. In Vietnam, you can be tripped up quite easily if you're not aware of changing the laws or in practice or what the authorities are doing. So community, engagement, network, and business, it's that oversight, it's that professional providers, and making sure you have that engagement with that professional sector as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously my advice would be to become part of a business association. Actually, for the same reason that Matt has just given, it is important to have that professional network that can help you, that you can bounce things off, that can give you some guidance in this country that simply differs a lot from the Western world. So that is, I think, a very sound advice that I fully agree to. And secondly, I think Vietnam can seem like quite an impenetrable market sometimes. So it's very important that you get your information right, so that you get the information that you get that from reliable sources, and that you get it from a variety of sources as well. And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing a little research on this market before jumping in. Having said that, Vietnam is in many investors' portfolios still underrepresented. There are many opportunities here, many things to tap into. And indeed, with some wisdom by your side, some expertise, your money can be very well spent here, and it can be very lucrative to invest here. So yeah, those three things essentially: information, network, and how do you summarize that in one word? And daring to tap into the potential. Yeah.
Matthew, Guido, thank you both for sharing your insights about the business community in Vietnam, and you're invited again soon to talk more about this subject or other interesting ones.
Great to be here.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks for having me, guys.
You're welcome.
Welcome. And many thanks to you, our listeners, for tuning in to Advancing Vietnam podcast series. For more information about this topic, please check out our publications on vietnam.acclime.com. And if you want to reach out to us for any additional details, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn or throughout the website contact details.